Hi, my name is Alyssa. I'm the host of Stories and Spoilers, the podcast, and I'm so excited for this special episode with Lily. She writes amazing, atmospheric, wonderful romantasy that has queer representation. Lily, take it away.
I am Lily and I write Bodice Rippers for queer
Yeah.
readers. All my books have extremely queer, fun characters with guaranteed happy endings. My best-selling series is called Seven Star, and you can get it for free on Kindle Unlimited. Or you can get physical copies on my website as well. But they are standalone books. There are seven standalone books that you can read following the shenanigans of each individual couple. But the very first book in the series is Let Me Be Yours, and it holds a very, very special place in my heart because I felt like I really grew with my main characters. It took me about 2 years to write it, pitch it to publishers, get rejected, and eventually self-publish. And so, like, we have been through the trenches. We have been through a journey. We have been through countless, and I mean countless rewrites to get the characters to where they are when you read them in Let Me Be Yours. So if you're looking for a place to start on your seventh star journey, please start with Let Me Be Yours. And I'm sure you will fall in love with the characters just as much as I have.
Thank you so much, Lily. I did fall in love with your characters. This is a non-spoiler episode, so I will not be doing a deep dive into the series because I really
Yeah.
want everyone to go in blind. But we can discuss book tropes. We can give you a little bit of a description of the world you'd be diving into. So yeah, Lily, tell them more about Let Me Be Yours. Give them a little taste tester.
So the only thing I suppose, the only spoiler I would ever give away for all my books is that they all have happily ever afters. Um, None of my books end on a cliffhanger
Thank God.
or in
No, I'm sorry. Who likes that? Not me.
No,
No.
I mean, like sometimes it's really for romance, especially or romanticities. I think it's really difficult when you end on a cliffhanger because readers pick up certain books with the prior knowledge that they're going to have these like fuzzy happy feelings,
Yeah.
even though the characters might put through some trials, the romance aspect is going to shine through. So if you have a cliffhanger, you kind of like you didn't, as an author, you didn't keep your end of the bargain, like when
Ooh.
you brought the books to readers. I think that's what
I
it is.
like that point of view though. I think I recently read a book with a cliffhanger. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
And going in, I thought it was gonna wrap up all in one book.
Yeah.
But luckily, I liked the characters enough that I was comfortable with this is ending in a cliffhanger. At least I know book two is coming very soon. But was I a little sad that it was left at such a it felt like I was in the middle of a breath, like, and then it just ended. And I was like, oh, and the
Oh, are
second
you
book is
talking
not
about
out yet.
Feybound by any chance? Was it? What did you read? No.
No, it was well the book's out now, so I think it's okay to say this, but
Yeah.
it I was on the ARC team. It's out now, but in The Moon and His Tides, which I love, Gianna, I love you, but it ends at a cliffhanger and it ends where all the characters are in a strange position. Like you don't know how they got here. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
one character is like you don't know what happened to him. You left him in a horrible space. One character is like engaged to someone else who's not even like relevant. And then our main character is heartbroken, and he thought there was still hope and there apparently wasn't hope. So it's one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like, God, I was just sitting there like, so, for your dedicated fans out there, where is the cookie? Where's my reward? I finished the book and I'm heartbroken. But it's okay. There's time
Yeah.
to wait. But with your books, I really enjoy how the tension, you write tension so beautifully and like chemistry.
Yeah.
When you write, like I just wanted to know, like, do you get just as invested, like you don't know what your characters are gonna do next, or do you kind of know in your mind, like, okay, this is the timetable, you're gonna get from A to B to C, or is it more like it's like a movie, like you're following along in your mind when you're experiencing that? I'm just because when I was reading your books, I didn't know. I was like, what's gonna happen next? You have to kiss now, fix the problem. So yeah, yeah, I was like,
Okay.
kiss.
So I will admit that I have I think there is a time and space for a fast burn. Like
Mm,
I sometimes, if I see that I pick up a book, Sapphic Romance, 100 pages, I know it's going to be a fast burn.
yes.
I'm all for that. But when I read anything related to fantasy, I need there to be certain elements to the romance, and one of it is a slow burn, a yearning, like pining. Use all that words. I love those.
I love
And so
fighting.
with and Aaron, like I'm not even joking. When I was writing, I don't think it's a spoiler. When I was writing the scene in the bath, the underground bath, I was actually like laughing like maniacally as I was like typing. I was like, "You wish, you wish."
You're like, just kiss, and they're like, I can't right now, and you're like, God, the moment was perfect. The candlelight's lit. Like, I I do feel like, especially with the first thing that pops into my mind, I was telling my partner about this, was the show Willow from Disney Plus. I never got to watch it, but I
Okay.
know it was the next, pretty much. It had two women sword fighting. One is a protector, the other one's a princess. The show
Love
is
it.
no longer there, and I don't support Disney, but. It broke my heart because it was the only queer representation I had for like women in fantasy, obviously queer. They kiss.
Mm,
It had that trope of like the princess and the soldier, like, and that's why for me, like the only thing I have is like Xena, like the like princess warrior. I guess the only thing I got.
oof,
That's all I got. She's got her
was
leather and her
fine.
sword and her muscular arms. She's like, don't touch her. I'm like, oh, this is so good.
So good.
Your books do give me that vibe a little bit of like that protective, like sexy, like I want you, but it's not the right time. We're in the middle of a fight right now. I
Yeah.
can't be with you. We're literally fighting right now. And it's like, but I have feel no. And it's that's three more chapters away. No. But I love how atmospheric your writing is. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
What makes a good romantasy book?
So I have a few criteria, right? So I recently spoke about this, but to me, I think a lot of people out there when they pick up a romantic book, sometimes they're a little bit misguided
Mm,
because in general, if less than 50% of the book is romance, then I would put it under the category of a fantasy romance. If
mm,
more than 50% of the book is romance, then it is a romantasy, i.e., if you can read the book without the romantic plot, it's either fantasy or fantasy romance. Like without the central characters falling in love, without them, I don't know, going on a quest, without them doing something, if the story doesn't fall flat, it's not romantasy. I don't think that's right. So a lot of the times when you see on Book Talk, like, oh, here's the latest romantasy, blah blah blah, but it's not like there's a subplot of romantasy rather than an overarching theme.
mm.
I don't think that that's considered a romantasy. That's just me being very nitpicky with what I consider to be a romantasy, because based on that, you do have to like as an author, of course, you have to think about the non-negotiables of the genre. So for me, for a really good romantasy, there has to be a strong internal struggle for the characters. So, like for example, for Artemis and Aaron, Art struggles with the that well, it's in the blur. People would know, but she struggles with the death of her mate. So mate's died and she's trying to get through the grief. So that's a very strong internal struggle. And then comes an external struggle where her mom's forcing a new mate kind of down her throat. And then so then you get a very like tangible pool of internal and external. And I think for me, that is the best way to begin any romantasy, where you immediately create a sympathetic bond with your readers, with your characters, and you kind of lure them in and be like, haha, now you're stuck. You have to read more to figure out what
Yeah.
happens.
You want to know what happened in that situation to lead them to this point. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think that's important. Also, like a slow burn element is important. And what I particularly mean by slow burn is you don't get into any of like the more intimate details until halfway through the book. That is minimally halfway through.
Mm.
Some people are really great. They can do it like three quarters of the way through and just have like one drawn out like scene, multiple
Yes.
POVs, and call it a day. I'm fine with that because that kind of like builds you up to like a really good point and then releases the tension and then you eventually have your the ending to the book. Fine by me. So there are like a few things that are like non-negotiable. So character development, whether it's through the romance or by themselves, non-negotiable for me. But these are like I suppose my criteria because a lot of people would just be like, "Oh, I like dragons." And I'm like, "Great, that's perfect. You do you." But for me, it's more like examining how the characters grow,
Mhm.
how they grow themselves, how they grow as a couple, um, and yeah, I like there are just several things that make something like a good romantic like that. It's just not one thing for me.
I feel like when I think of a good romantasy, I think of like your books. I think of Kimberly Lemming. I want, I think I personally, I love like I need the banter to be good. I have to have
Yes.
chemistry. Yeah,
Mm.
I need there to be chemistry. That's my only thing with Insta love is that like for it to be like I saw you at first sight, we're mated, we're meant to be. Like I
Mm.
need you to actually know the person. I need
Yeah.
you to have like an understanding of who you're in love with. Even I like this trope where it's like they initially are with someone and it turns out that this person has an evil side or that possessive thing turns on its head. People may know this, spoiler alert, for like the series is so well known and it's not gay, but it's a good example of who you were initially with is not who you were meant for, which is like A Court of Thorns and Roses, where it's like you have a character who was this like summer child, beautiful, warm, sexy, everything was great, and you begin to realize those little seeds of possessiveness, those little seeds of power as they begin to grow, they really
Yeah.
weren't a great person, or the power manipulated them, like who they were, the potential of who they were. Like love
Mm.
made them their version of love made them even worse.
Yeah.
Seeing that in romantasy and then seeing the real love interest is like the dark, moody, soldier or like the warrior or like the villain who always had good intentions in the end. Even though I love a villain who has no redemption, I also do love a villain where like they did bad things, like the ends justify the means. They did bad things to get to a certain point to save or to
Yeah.
support the main character. I like that where they're like, you killed and you lied and but I love you. I've always been here. And I'm like sitting here and I'm like, yes, yes. I'm sitting here like they're like, I went through battle and war for you. I've killed thousands of people. I'm like, mm-hmm, just to meet you. And I'm like, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I just
minimally
love
what I
it.
expect. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sitting here and they're like, I'd burn what is it? I think it's like I see this, it's like a Pinterest quote pretty much, but it's like a hero would save the world and then like the real love interest you want would save you. Like they would choose you over the world. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. And it is evil, right? You're supposed to save the people. But for me, I've always been like, give me the book where like they would burn the whole world down to save the love
Nice.
interest, like they don't care. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I need it. I need it. So I love that. And I feel like in your books, the romance is built up in a way where it's deserved. Like when they do get together, when the bodice gets ripped off, when the things happen, I'm sitting here and I'm like, about damn time. It's definitely like the F it moment where it's like, this is a horrible idea. Fuck it. And
Well.
then bam, they just do it. I'm like, ah, I love it. It's like a reward, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like your
Yeah.
books are like the when you're on a marathon and you're running, you're like, I don't have any more strength. And then like the romance comes through and you're like, I have the strength.
Exactly.
That's
Like
the
the reward
energy.
has to be like significant enough to be like,
Yes.
this is why I endured. This is why I pushed through. This is why, like, I almost cried when they did not kiss before.
Is
Like,
it
it
gonna
has to
happen?
be a really significant reward. And I feel like so like for most of Let Me Be Yours, like the initial chapter where they do get together, that was changed. Like it was initially the one scene and expanded two scenes and they expanded to three scenes.
Ooh.
Like because people need the reward for like powering through all of this. Yeah, like I feel like it was my non-negotiable. Like I needed to make sure that my readers are well taken care of
Thank God.
after yeah
Please.
the
Thank
struggle.
you. Speaking as one of the readers, thank God. I think also like when characters kiss and like they're finally in a good place, and you look at the book and you're like, what? why are there 50 more pages? And you're like,
Ah,
there's 50 more pages because they're not safe. I repeat, they're not safe. They're still gonna
yeah.
get a happy ending, but like the problem
How do you
hasn't
get
been
there?
solved. Yes.
Yeah.
Whenever I see that in a book, I'm like, oh, everyone's kissing, everything's good, everything's great, no one's dead, we're all good. 60 more pages. And I'm like, this
Mm,
better be some fluffy, beautiful shit. And then it ends up being like,
no.
a war is
Yeah.
broken out. My leg is broken. The house is burning. I'm like, oh my God. So, but you do make sure that everyone's okay in the end. And I know a lot of readers want a happy ending, so I appreciate you for being upfront about that. Like, don't worry, y'all. I'll protect you. It's gonna be okay. So that makes me very happy. My next question for you is, what is your favorite book trope? And I know you already said you like a good little slow burn, so you can't say that. So what is one of your favorite book tropes and why? And what's one of your favorite spicy book tropes? Okay, because your books have spice. Okay,
Ooh.
tell me. I
So
know.
well, I really do love like a kind of forbidden romance. And for me, like forbidden is like I consider age gap
Mm-hmm.
as part of like a forbidden
Agreed.
romance. And even like in a way like an arranged marriage is
Mm,
also like, kind of not like that's like the lower end, the least spicy end
yeah,
of like forbidden, but
I
like,
get that.
I'm married to you and I shouldn't love you, but I do. Like that kind of thing. Like to me, I really love those kind of aspects that like really mess with your mind. Like I mean, like from my books, like you can tell the first one was slow burn arranged marriage, second one was enemies to lovers, third was poly, fourth was age gap, fifth was
Yeah.
dark. At least for me, that was my version of a dark romance. Six was, I want to say like submissive alpha. I don't really know how to put that, but like more like dominant femme omega kind of
I'm trying so
vibe.
hard not to like geek out because I was like, oh my God, it's what I've been looking for. I asked for queer romanticy and I got it. I got so many books for it now. For anyone out there
Yeah.
who's like, I just want a queer romanticy that's like a big book that I can sink myself into.
Yes. Like if you're in the mood for that, if you're in the mood to sit down for like an entire week and just read, then the seventh star is actually really, really good for that because you get to see recurring characters come back in as well. That is one of the things that I really, really love about series where you get standalones, but then you see other characters coming in to be like, hi, I'm still here, I'm still cute, and then you kind of fall in love with them all over again. It's one of my most favorite things. But I have to say, like a lot of the time, I really do love like very like simple tropes. Like for example, ABO is kind of like a for me anyway, it's a simple trope. But for a lot of people, it's like very out there, like um like oh my gosh, women with penises is just like
Well, well,
super
well.
super out there.
What do you have? Is there a carrot in your pocket? Are you happy to see me? Is that your keys? Is that your keychain? Are you just happy to see me? Ah, for the gays out there. I know that like I love describing intimacy and discussing like intimacy in books because we do learn a lot about it in books.
Yeah,
For girlies like me who like to read and then you discuss things with your partner, you discuss things with your friends, and you get to explore things before you do them in a safe space.
yeah.
Um, I honestly, reading your books, it was the first time I've ever read a book with a queer character who is so forward, but also sweet and like in the way they pursue certain sexy experiences. And
Mm,
I just felt like it was a very safe space. Like I felt like it was written with a lot of love.
yeah.
And I was like, this is really nice, especially because like I love sexy books. I'm definitely a smut reader, but um I feel like sometimes sexy stuff can be written in a way that's very like they were in the right position, they knew exactly what to do the first time, and they come 3,000 times and everything's fate great and there's no, I don't need water. I can sleep with you in the clouds. Yeah. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, okay. Like it's nice to see that they knew each other for quite a while before. The tension's built, the trust is built, the intimacy feels earned. Like
Yeah.
I adore that. Also, like I don't know how to describe it, but like your books, I feel like have a really great way of like at that point, like the reader is like, I am begging for some spice. I am begging for a moment of intimacy. So when it finally happens, it's like, um, you're satisfied. Like you're very satisfied, you know?
Yeah.
So as a I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to give too much away, but like it's definitely like you will be just on the edge of your seat the same way that the love interest is.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Yeah.
good. It's
That
so
was
good.
by design, absolutely by design.
You're like you speak of the
Whenever
things I've created.
yeah, like whenever I plan any book, it always starts with the romance, or it starts with like a singular scene. Um so for Let Me Be Yours, it started with the mating mark scene where they're like they're not really sure, they're quite like bumbling like little kids almost, they're not really sure what to do because they don't want to like do it, but at the same time they know there'll be questions. And so that was the first scene that I wrote for that, for the book. And then I was like,
Wow.
actually this is really cutesy and like adorable but also kind of hot at the same time. And then the
Yeah.
characters kind of evolved from that as well. So
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I I also was curious about like since that was the first thing you wrote for the book, when you get inspiration, is it like an image in your head or like someone that you meet or like a movie scene in your mind? I'm always curious about that. People say like I know my characters, like I wrote them this way. I'm like, what inspired that character, you know?
Wow, actually, I honestly, I don't think it was a movie or anything like that. It I kind of threw several things that I loved together. Um, and I knew that it would be too simple to just have these two people being thrown together in an arranged marriage. Like there has to be some kind of like crazy outside forces. So for Artemis, it would be still grieving. That's her thing. Her mom being like, you need to marry someone. That's her thing. And for Erin, it would be her mom being like extremely overbearing, and a few other things. Read the triggers before you go in. Um, but like for me it wasn't any other, because I don't know if you've read other characters like this, but for like Erin, I have not actually seen anyone with the same kind of complicated relationship with the mother or the same kind of characterization. She is a little bit of like a damsel in distress if you want to look at it that way, but it's not in a way that I have seen represented in queer literature before. And I
Mm.
think that's kind of what I really wanted to portray like in the book. So it was more like I have this character in mind. I know kind of how she is, like what her vibe is, but it took like some molding to like get her into shape. Oh my god, I sound like her mom. But no, like kind of no,
It took
like
a little bit of convincing to
yeah,
get her where she needs to
exactly.
go. No,
Yeah, like
I could understand what you're saying. I think the only two characters I can think of where like their relationship with their mom is complicated, and so their romantic relationship with their partner ends up being kind of complicated in a way, directly related to their mom. In a queer literature, it has to be August from One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Her relationship with her
okay.
mom directly impacts her relationship in the book. Um, but also without her relationship with her mom, she wouldn't have been able to help her love interest like directly.
Mm,
So that was kind of interesting, and I will call it queer literature because she's out when the book starts and when she meets the like her potential love interest has been out for quite a long time, but her mom is I think a private eye or something like that. She's like an investigator, and her daughter
mm,
she like would help her with her cases. Her love interest doesn't know who she is, so because of the skills her mom gave her, she's able to use those skills to help her love interest, and that's like the
yeah.
core of the story. But also she learned something about her mom that's unforgivable,
Mm,
and you realize her mom moved her around so much it actually hurt her ability to attach or like to
yeah.
build a home. So because of her mom's actions, I also agree. I think that character is a little bit of a damsel in distress because she, without being able to communicate it, has always been seeking something,
Mm,
validation, reassurance.
yeah.
Some would call it needy. I personally relate to female main characters in queer literature who are needy or like they're like, oh, she needs to be saved. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be fucking saved. There's nothing wrong with wanting
Yeah.
someone to come in and like help you. Like you can save yourself, but it's nice to have a person to come through and be like, you deserve better. And I'll show you better.
True.
there's nothing wrong with that. A knight in shining armor can be a very beautiful, bossy, you know, character. And gender non-conforming, and honestly, gender is non-binary, and it's so fluid that it's nice to meet characters in queer literature who are reassuring while also taking their shit. And it takes them time to get there. Like not everyone is born a badass. Like it takes time to stand up to certain people in your family in some situations, even in books. Like it's actually grounding for me when a character has
Mm,
like a mom or a dad who's very a lot of things and they're able to overcome that, or they're able to stand up to them, or they're able to like grow
yeah.
throughout the story, which I definitely felt in your books. So that's one book. And then we mentioned it before recording, but a book, Serpentine Valentine by Gianna Darling, which I did an episode about. Lux, you don't hear much about her parents till later, but Luna, who is the someone who's going through a lot, her mom is a major part of her exploring her sexuality, and you learn about like what she's been through and like how her mom treats women. And it's a core part of who she ends up growing up to be. And you do decide it later on in the story, you get to see her come out, you get to see her stand up to her mom, you get to see her grow up and evolve into the badass she deserves to be in her own way. Um, it's great. So yes, I agree. In queer literature, outside of your book and like two other books I can think of, it's very rare that I see like a character who's a damsel in distress in a way, you know what I mean, whose parents have directly impacted where they are. And like the pressure of the book is from the parent, or
Yeah.
the book is from like a king or a queen, or uh, a mother figure or a father figure who's like really twisting the knife, thinking they're helping, but they're making it worse. I
Yeah.
can only think of like two other books that have a similar trope or a similar element that yours do, but they're very original, and your books are so good. So,
Oh.
yeah, like, it's a treat. It's a treat when the conflict isn't the relationship per se, and the stakes aren't super high. Like the world is not ending, which
Exactly.
is nice. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
you designed that initially, for the stakes. If the stakes are high and the emotions are high and they're already grieving, it's a lot. Like
It's so much.
it's a
Yeah.
lot. And I'm like, woo, this is a lot. Even with like time travel, there are certain books where like the person doesn't age, and I'm like, this is great. Um, but that's such a big concept. Like, how are we
Yeah.
supposed to defeat time? Like,
True.
that's so massive. I'm like, oh, the only character I can think of who I wish there was a queer female version of is the Darkling from what is it? Is it Shadow and Bone?
Oh, uh-huh.
Yes, there's a scene with him where I was like, put it in a queer book, please. And he says like, there's a love interest, and the love interest, they're like head to head. He's like, I'll have her. She'll love me. And the Darkling's like, I don't have to kill you. Time will do it for me because he's not gonna age. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, that's my king right there. That's my man. Even though I'm gay, I'm sitting here and I'm like, if the Darkling was a female, give it to me now. Please. I'm sitting here. It's like, I don't have to lay a single hand on you because you're going to grow old and die, and I'm still going to be here. And she's going to need
Mm,
us. She's going to need me. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, is it manipulative? Yes. Is it evil?
yeah.
Yes. Do I love it? Yes. He, what is it? The trope where it's like, hear me out. There's certain tropes people are like, that sounds insane. It's like, hear me out, hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. That's with me for your books. I think it has to be like, I'm not healed yet, but I'm here to love you. I'm still hurting, but I'm ready to be your mate, and let's be together. She's like, I'm still hurting. And the love interest like, hey, I don't want to force your hand, but like we get married. It's gonna happen. And you're like, but she isn't healed yet. And it's like, sorry, I'm here. I'm here. You know, that's like the trope where I'm like, they're like, but did they heal? I'm like, no, not yet, not yet. But they're getting true love's at your door. I didn't order this. Well, true love's at your
Yeah.
door. Hope you're ready.
Yeah. Well, your mom ordered it, I
Yeah,
suppose,
your mom
like
ordered this for you. And you're like, oh, he's like, yeah, are you ready to fall in love? And they're like, no. Well, I'll be here when you're ready. But we also have a timetable. You got 30 minutes. That's the same energy. But I loved it in your books. So hopping to the next question. Ooh, what character did you pour yourself into the most? And what can you tell us about that character?
That is actually a really, really good question.
Hey.
I think I relate to a few of the characters like really well. And like every character that I create has a little part of me, either if it's like a quirky thing that they do. For example, Artemis loves her peppermint tea. I'm literally having peppermint tea right
I
now.
love your mug. I meant to say that.
Oh, I made it myself.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very
Um,
cozy.
it is. It's really cozy. Like even like from small characteristics like that, they do come from me. Like Thea, who wears a top knot all the time. That's me. I do that at home when I'm not recording a podcast.
Understood.
So like there are just little things that come from me. But I think characteristic wise, not like physical appearance or anything like that, characteristic wise, I think I am very much like Sage from my third book. um,
Mm.
just because I always tend to take the protector role. I'm very much recently. I don't know if you've seen these like things you can do with your friends, like, oh, this is what my friends think of me, and it's like I am Summer, and I'm like like a protective whatever. So recently, my friends did that for me, and one of them said that I was like Blossom from Powerpuff Girls, and I'm like, that is true. Because like yes, I do tend to take the lead on a lot of things, which is a big characteristic that Sage has. But I'm also like very protective of people, and just like in a kind of like a group setting, I can be very like quiet. And so like I do relate to Sage a lot, although Sage is like a very like a mask kind of person. Like she is like really mask. So like outward appearance wise, we're very different, but characteristic wise, we are very similar. And she's like very ambitious, and I am very ambitious. Like before I started doing this full time, I had like a whole plan. I had a backup plan for the plan. I had a backup plan for that plan. So it was like very much like we share a lot of similarities. Um, but yeah, like I do think back sometimes, and I'm like, I really I like her character, but at the same time, when someone asks me like, "Who's your favorite character?" I can never say Sage because we're just too much alike. Like I admire her, but it can't ever be her. Like I
It would be
always say,
you.
"Oh, like my favorite character is Yogi because she's so soft and she's so like nice and she's like a baker and but she also does really important things and she holds the nest together." Like I would say things like that because it's true, but at the same time, like if you were like asking who's the most like you, I would say definitely Sage, just character wise. um but yeah, I hope that makes
Wow.
sense.
That does make sense. And like I'm like slowly working my way through your books, but for me I'm sitting here and I'm like I don't when I'm really enjoying something, I don't want to rush. So I'm
Yeah,
sitting here and I'm like I just really want to enjoy the story and I want to take my time. And like I read a novella of yours before
yeah.
I hopped into your big and I was like I need more. I'm sitting here and I was like I have other things I need to read. I have other responsibilities. I have a job. I have school. And I'm sitting here and I'm like in the middle of the night I'm like what happens next? No, no, my Kindle died. I went on my phone. I read on my phone. I was like, no.
uh
So I killed my Kindle reading your book because I didn't
wow.
encourage it. I was just sitting there like, I need to know what happens next. Are they in love yet? So
Oh,
it's
the
definitely I can't wait to get physical copies. So yes, your writing is quite good. Also, I have to say that like the way you describe your characters, even just their names and like their mannerisms, I could imagine everything in my mind when I read like a movie. So that's how I felt when I was reading your books. I could imagine everything in my head like a movie.
yeah, that's good though. That's also again by design. Like I find it really jarring when people like the way movement is described in some books is very jarring to me because that's not how people naturally move, or that's
Mm.
not how people naturally talk. And so like when I started writing, I was like, this has to, if you notice, like my chapters are always like it starts in one place and it ends in that place. Like I don't take you from like one place to another to another to another, because I feel like that is kind of not how reality works. Like
100%.
it's hard to like describe a lot of movement convincingly. And I mean, like you have people like you know, Game of Thrones and stuff, like yeah, great, like it happens there, but because that's like a different kind of world. But when you're writing romance and when you're writing the nuances of love between two characters, it is very hard to do that when you have like a vague world. Rather, well, this is probably advice for authors, but it becomes more realistic when you like narrow in to just like one room or one place in one room, and then
Mhm.
you can really expand on like how certain characters behave, what they do within that space, and then it becomes more of a movie um like real in someone's head, rather than them having to like piece together how did they get from the room to the field to the you know, wherever.
Were they talking and moving? That's the question. Like, I would understand it if they're talking and they're walking from one place to another. But when they're traveling like long distances, I'm like, okay, this has to be part of the story then. Like, are we on horseback? Is it modern day? Are we on a plane? Like,
Yeah.
I never understood that when like they wake up and they're in a different place. I'm like, but when did you travel? Like, when did you travel? Like,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't know. I need it to be explained because my I have anxiety, so my brain sometimes will like if I don't get an answer, my brain begins to fill in the blanks of the story, and I'm like, oh, so I guess it this must have happened. Like,
Mm.
I guess this is what they really meant. And then if and if it never gets explained, I'm just sitting there like, so I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll never know. So, yes.
Yeah, but then you see that
Okay.
kind of like takes the reader out of the story, which is
Mhm.
really not what you want. So yeah, I think it's important to like take a. I mean, if people want to create that kind of like seamless movie like experience, it is easy to do it in one setting at a time, rather than try and rush things or try to have people doing a lot of things at the same time, which will yeah go against what you're trying to achieve.
I get that. I'm sorry if you see I'm sorry if you see a black tail or like a head pop out of nowhere.
No, I did think it was strange because initially I thought it was a tentacle, and I was like, that is very strange. Then I realized no, it's a cat. It's a
It's a
cat.
cat.
Yeah.
This Midnight, my cat, he got
Oh,
bored of playing with his mom, so now he's trying to come over here and beg for snacks and pets. But he he's my
that's okay. I
unofficial
love
podcast co-host. Yeah, you thought it was a tentacle? Wow. Me,
I really
oh,
was like,
monster
what is
romance. 2 minutes later,
that?
girl, why is there a tentacle in this cat? Oh,
Because I could only see like the tail coming up this way. I couldn't actually see the cat.
oh,
Yeah.
yes. Midnight is he's always trying to like, come here, baby.
Oh, hello, Midnight.
He's a good boy. He's actually purring.
Yeah.
Whenever I hold him like that, people are like, "Is he okay?" I'm like, he loves to be held. He loves to be like tossed over your shoulder. He
That's
loves
so
it.
cute.
Yeah,
Oh.
he's just a big bit. He's also my reading buddy. So if he loves the book, he'll roll around in it.
Mm,
And if he doesn't like it, if he doesn't like it, he'll sit beside it like in a ball. It's great for
okay.
photos, but it's not great when it's not great when I'm reading. He's like, not vibing
Mm.
with it. But on the bright side, he loved your book. He was all over my Kindle, so that's a great sign. Maybe he liked the
Well,
heat,
thank
maybe he
you,
liked the story.
Midnight. My first feline fan. That's so
100%.
cute.
I when I get my physical copies, I'll make sure to get a photo of him like with the books because I
Lovely.
can't wait to get them on my shelf. Um, I speaking of I have a horrible sense of humor. Me. Speaking of tentacles, let's jump into the spicy question.
Yeah. I do
Um,
love a good tentacle moment. I haven't had to
I'm okay
explore
with the
that.
monster romance. I don't mind it.
Right? Like
I don't
sapphic
mind it.
tentacles. Yes, please.
Shit. If you have any recommendations, y'all, I have what is it? I've read of sapphic romances where like one's a vampire and like one is like I guess shadow bender so she can like change her like shape and stuff. Like there's fun
Wait.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Wait, which one? I literally,
Wait.
I have a vampire witch sapphic romance coming out where the vamp can also do that. Which book is this? Because now I need to go read this.
So, okay, so for a vampiric book, she also has like snake elements, I guess. I don't want to it's called Lady Venom Takes a Mistress. And I don't remember the name of the author. But yes,
Okay.
Lady Venom Takes a Mistress. And it's I remember it not being that I don't think it was that long. It had to be like maybe 300 pages tops. Like it was not that long.
Yeah.
But yes, the men in the town think like Nosferatu, like very dark, very moody. Like that's the
Hmm.
setting. That's the setting, not the character, that's the setting. So the setting is very moody and dark. And then the men in the town are like, we're gonna marry off this beautiful woman to this like creepy, horrible, like grapey guy. Like we can tell he's a grapey guy, and we're gonna
Oh,
marry her off. And she's like, I'd rather die. And they're like, oh, how about you go to that little castle and die then? Because there's a queen in there and she kills all the men who try to get into her castle. So she's like, okay, I don't want to marry this man. She runs away from this man. She runs to the woods, runs to the darkness, and she knows that Lady Venom, like this horrific story of this woman who like takes women and they never are seen again.
okay.
Anyway,
You know what? Sold, sold. I'm reading this.
she
This is
runs.
so
She
good.
runs into the woods, billowing white dress, terrified. Yitty's looking good, freaked
Very
out.
Nosferatu. Yeah, I can see the vibes. Yeah.
She's running, and then these men are like chasing after her. And long story short, men gone, taken out, 2 seconds,
Nice.
not even worry. Lady Venom's like, oh, you want to date? She's like, no, I don't even know you. I don't even know what that means. And Lady Venom's like, oh, I'll teach you. And that's all you need to know. That's all you need to
Oh, I'm
know.
excited.
So
That
yeah,
very much so.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And Lady Venom has a friend who pops up later who's you can tell is a vampire, but she's like different. And I
Okay.
hope it alludes to her having her own book because she was a
Hmm.
lot more like for like cast down, like something like messed her up. Oh, and I don't know what happened. I want to know what happens to that character. She was like in the shadows, and I was like, who dat? So it was, and then she
Nice.
leaves, and I'm like, hey girl, where are you? But yes, Lady Venom takes a mistress. If you're, and she has like snake elements, and
Okay.
her creatures are snake-like. So it gave
Hmm.
me a little bit of that like shadow daddy energy
I see.
a little bit. So super, super good. Yeah. And you learn about like her past and like why she needs certain things. Oh, it's so good. So if you end up reading it, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And then I think that's the best one I can give her as like a shadow, sexy kind of vibe. And
Hmm.
if you don't mind like straight romance, I just changed the pronouns in my head. But if you
Okay.
yeah, you sometimes you just gotta do it. The beauty of your books
Desperate.
is that I don't have to do that because I can have fun with the spicy elements and it's still a woman and I'm like, yeah, yeah, she gets the job done. Yeah. But like in straight romance, I'm like, okay, is it a man in my mind? No,
No.
a man in my mind. It's not, but it's still
I have
fun.
something to say about that. So the one of the ways
Ooh,
that I knew that I was definitely very gay is like I
tell
was
me more.
yeah, like this was when I was like a teenager, early teens, no, maybe like 13, 14. And we would read like those like Harlequin type of bodice rippers, and like my friends and I would talk about them sometimes. And
Aw.
it just came to a point where they were describing a scenario in one way and I was describing it in another way, but it was the same scene. And then they were like, wait, are you the guy in this scenario? And I was like, wait, all of you don't. They're like, no, why would you? And I was like, oh, hmm,
I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm thinking of the Kendrick Lamar song where he's like bing bop boom boom bing bop bam on that shit you don't understand. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, wait, what do you mean? They're like, well, I'm the one receiving it. And I'm like, oh
mm,
no. I'm sitting here and I'm
mm.
like, how do you feel about giving? Like how do you feel about certain tools being used for pleasure? And they're like, oh, I wouldn't even know where to begin. And I'm like, read a book, girl. It'll teach you.
Yeah,
It'll teach you. Do some
yeah.
stretches. It's gonna be all right. Like do some yoga, do some Pilates. We can get into it. It's gonna be okay.
Mhm.
Like that's the beauty of for me reading your book, reading things like She Came from the Swamp, where there's a character where she's like
Yeah.
it's queer and she's a bodybuilder.
Mhm.
She's got powers.
Love.
And
Yeah.
she throws bread into the swamp, and then her hot, sexy partner rises from the swamp and is like, "Hey, yo, thanks for the snacks."
Or
She's summoned by by food and by visions. But long story short, she's able to change her appearance per, I guess, what her partner is looking for. And it's
Yeah.
so good. Like her swamp version of herself and like her human version of herself and the things she's able to develop.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Very
fun.
much love. Yeah.
It's fun.
This is Darva Green, right? Darva and
Yeah.
I we're collaborating with few other authors to do like a Christmas a series of Christmas novellas. So you will see them probably like available for pre-order like maybe August or something like that. So this is the first time I've ever talked about it. Actually, like we've
Good.
only like had like a background discussion, but like the writing is well underway. And yeah, so you'll probably see that and a lot more of these kind of like fantasy elements that you love, but with like
Yes.
queer women just being fun and queer
Having
and
fun. Why
sexy.
not? Why
Yeah.
not? Be fun and be sexy and be weird.
Yeah.
So I know you said you don't mind straight romance, and for me, I changed it in my head anyway. There
Mm.
is a wolf who's lactose intolerant, and
But
his love interest is a cheesemaker, and
mm-hmm.
she makes him a grilled cheese. This man eats it up, says nothing, says nothing. He has to get up. She's about to kiss him. He has to get up. He's like, I have to leave you now. He runs for the hills. This man's gonna poop his mind out. He's gonna poop his mind out.
Oh,
He's struggling. He's struggling, but he believes in love. So he eats that sandwich real quick. He's like, she made it for me. Scrumptious yum yum. And I also have a dairy allergy, so I felt his pain.
me
But
too.
I was like, ooh, for the girlies who get it. Dairy
Yeah.
free, almond milk, oat milk, vegan cheese, let's go.
Yeah.
But long story short, she tries to create someone gave her a love potion, she didn't want it. She threw it at a bar, like, I'm not drinking this. And it hits him, and he turns around and he's like,
Oh,
I'm in love with you. He also is a wolf, so he actually was already beginning to like have feelings for her. So when he
okay.
turns around and sees her, she's like, well, it's not consent because you're on a potion. Long story short, she tries to break the spell, and while trying to break the spell, she casts something else, and he ends up getting tentacles, and for a minute, and he is
Okay.
able to, because he wants her so badly, the tentacles end up moving in a way what his mind wants to do, and the
Oh,
tentacles they're they're interacting, and she's like in a robe and she's curvy and stuff, and the tentacles are touching her, and she's like, oh my God, no, but yes. And they end up having a great time. And there's a lot of humor to it at first, and then it gets really spicy. And I was like, this is so great. And that's the only book I've read with like tentacle elements.
yeah.
But it was actually really fun. So if you have any queer versions of that, I will 100% take them. Because we love
Oh,
monster romance in this house. We love monster romance in this house, 100%.
yeah.
So,
Coming soon though, like my new book that's coming out in June. It's called Will It Hurt? And the vampire does have some shadow manipulation abilities that she initially uses to harm people, but it also can be very sexy. It can also massage you
ooh,
in a non-sexual way, but also a sexual way if you want to. Um, but yes, it's a fun book that I'm
yes.
really excited to release. People keep DMing me about it, and I'm so grateful. But yeah, it's just it's still a work in progress. I finished it. It just needs to be edited a little bit more.
Wow. I'm so excited. Your books sound wonderful. And Will It Hurt sounds really, really good. Will we ever find out the answer? You're just gonna have to find out when the book gets released. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, actually, I'm thinking about it. Does it actually ever get answered?
You, emotional pain or physical? You.
Mm,
Oh,
mhm.
both? I'm like, oh no. Me being a softie. I'm like the human equivalent of a marshmallow. I'm like, is this
Oh,
book gonna hurt me? And everyone's like, yes. I'm like, give it to me now.
ah,
100%, I'm ready. My last question for you is, if your characters came to life, which one would you want to meet and what would you want to do?
okay. This is also really interesting because it also ties in with the question you asked before. Because I would really love to meet Yogi. I think it's people can guess that easily because she keeps reappearing in other books where she's not actually met. So you meet Yogi initially as a very young child in book one, and she becomes the love interest in book three when the kids are a lot older, and then she reappears in book five, and she reappears in yeah, book five actually, yes, and then again in the novella. Like it's just I can't let her go. And I think it's just because she has like a soft mask vibe. Like
Ooh,
she is masculine, but she has a lot of like
that's so cute.
yeah, like soft attributes. Like the baking is a big one. Like I absolutely love a baker. Like I just watching someone knead dough is really sexy to me. I don't know why. Uh,
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like I think it's the way they like work their hands, like they like especially not like just anyone working the dough, but a seasoned baker, the way they know like okay,
Oh, because of the
like
muscle and
a
stuff.
yeah, like a bread
Ooh,
loaf needs to be like done this way, like scones you need to do it another way, you know, like I don't know, I just find it really sexy when people do that.
understood.
But
I
also
feel that way about like wrestlers and like boxers when they like wrap their hands
oh yeah,
or like muscular like a muscular back or like strong arms. Or
yeah,
I don't there's something about a fighter. This I'm not a fighter. I'm not a fighter, but I'll
me
fight for
too.
love. There's something about
Yeah.
it. There's something about it.
So
There's a wrestler, her name's Rhea Ripley.
oh, she's so fine. How is she not gay? How is
That
she
she's with a
not
man. My partners informed
gay?
me that she is with a man. Apparently
Oh,
she's engaged. Like she's with a man. But
oh
come
well.
on, come on. She's like,
Oh
mommy,
well.
mommy always ends up on top. I'm like, who,
Mm,
I'm sitting here and I'm like, this sounds horrible, but I'm like, divorce is a thing. And we're
ah,
ready. We're ready whenever you're ready, girl. Like we all make
true.
mistakes. We all make mistakes. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, Rhea, in real life, I hope she has a wonderful life and a wonderful partner. But in my heart of hearts, I would love to see a book with someone who's modeled
Mm,
after her because wow, she
yeah,
is
she's fine.
gorgeous. She's
Gorgeous
flying.
woman.
The gays
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
panicking. I have two versions, and that's it. I have Rhea Ripley and I have Kristen Stewart.
Oh,
They're two very different women. But there's something about Kristen Stewart. She looks so tired and sick and artistic and
thick.
like
Yes.
there's just something about her. If you saw Love Lies Bleeding,
I did, yeah. Yeah. It was yeah, it was an interesting ending. Like I liked a lot of it up until the end where it became a bit crazy. It looks like someone took mushrooms at the end and that's what we're imagining, you know, like it was a bit strange.
the
Um
her love interest in that book as well, or in that film,
mm,
woo,
she was so good looking.
was so good
Katie
looking.
O'Brien, I can't remember what her name was, but stunning. Oh my
Whoa.
oh
Whoa, she's in I think she's in like Star Trek, like a TV show version, but she's in it. She's in it, and she plays like a small role. But whenever I see her in the corner, I'm like, the
mm,
gays are in space. I'm sitting, I'm like, the gays are in space. And if she was in a book, like, or if she was cast in a film, she would be like, we can't be together.
yeah.
Tricep.
I could easily see her as one of my alphas in the book. Like absolutely.
No
Like you can imagine
way.
she has like the physique for it and like the kind of like almost like a soft spoken
Hmm.
vibe, even with
Kind eyes, big
yeah, she's
muscles.
gorge. Yeah, absolutely.
Hello? She could save me anytime. What's up? My my
Mm-hmm.
my partner in the corner knocked out me. Yeah, I love a girl who works out. We love to see it. My partner did a push-up. It was great. We love to see a push-up. But me reading, you can work out. I'm gonna lift these books, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm
Mm.
studying for you. Your books have taught me so much. So I'll use it in my personal life. But what is something that you want to tell listeners about your books before we close this episode out? If you had to end the episode on one thing,
Yeah.
what is something you want my listeners to know?
I think if you want to be titillated, then pick
Ooh,
up the books. If you want to be entertained, if you want, I would say 5-star smut, please pick up these books. They are a bit of an investment with regards to time because you do have to spend some time investing in the characters before you get to the smut. But once it hits, it is, I would say, a very like 5-star experience, especially if you've not read Sapphic Megaverse, because you are in for a ride. Check the
yeah.
triggers, but you will enjoy it.
A literal and figurative ride.
Yeah.
Me, literally and figuratively. Yes. Yes, 100%. Thank you so much, Lily, for coming on the podcast and talking
You're
about your
so
wonderful
welcome.
books. I will link them all in the show notes below. You can also find Lily on Instagram, and I'll link that below as well. But thank you so, so much for coming on. You're absolutely amazing.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yay, we did it.